Hello and a very good afternoon to everyone present. Thank you so much for waiting. My name is Anya George from WRI-India, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to today's session on innovation to advance last-mile connectivity to metro networks. As India grapples with the twin challenges of congestion and pollution, innovation in public transport is fast becoming key to decarbonizing the sector and improving the lives of millions of people across the nation. Over the course of 7 years, the Station Access and Mobility Program, created by Toyota Mobility Foundation and WRI-India, has helped support better access to mass transit by deploying innovative and sustainable solutions in 7 cities. To set the context for today's program, I'd like to hand over the stage to Sudeep Maiti, Associate Director, who has led the STAMP program at WRI over the last few years.
Thank you, Anya. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sudeep Maiti. I have been associated with the STAMP program for since its inception. So it's absolutely having this discussion to come to this stage with the learnings that we have had is a proud moment for me. I'd like to thank all the delegates for making the time to join in. A special thank you to Kaushik ji, who is the Director of Systems and Operations, NCRTC, to having made some time in his busy schedule to be a part of this session. Transportation is a sector that is growing consistently in India, and this is a sector that will continue to grow as India's urbanization rates continue to expand. Now, today, transportation, the emissions that we have from the transportation sector are about 14% of all energy-related emissions. But this is something which is projected to go considerably unless we find a strategy to start decarbonizing this. Niti Aayog has suggested that the strategy for decarbonization of this sector will involve the electrification of public transport and increasing the modal share of public transport. And with the kind of investments that we are seeing today in the metro systems in different cities, I think it stands in a very good position to help cities decarbonize their entire transport sector. Today, we have about 857 kilometers or thereabouts of metro running across 7 cities. Running across 16 cities. And tomorrow, in the near future, we will have about 24 more cities joining in. It only becomes obvious that this is going to be an investment that is going to help solve mobility issues in various cities. And if we are able to solve the different aspects of MMI to it, it will become accessible to a larger audience. MMI is something that when addressed in all its aspects, which essentially means integration between different networks across a city, making sure that the first mile, last mile becomes robust, and we are also able to address other aspects like ticketing and crowd management, will help make public transport a much more competitive in terms of time, affordability across other modes, and it could be a game changer. This is one of the fundamental aspects that the Station Access and Mobility Program that has been founded upon, and we thank the Toyota Mobility Foundation to have been there in formalizing the program, and not just formalizing the program, but also have been engaged in the day-to-day functioning of the program. Today's session, we have 2 sessions lined up today. The first session is essentially going to look at what has been the learnings from the startup engagement that we have had over the years, and how can we use this to scale up to other cities and other transportation systems. And how can we try and leverage the $25 billion USD investment that's that's been made into this that's been made across the country into the system to make cities a lot more accessible while helping the country achieve its decarbonization goals. And thank you. And with that, I hand it over to Anna.
Thank you, Sudeep, for setting the context for this session. And now we are truly honored to have Shri Navneet Kaushik, Director Systems and Operations at NCRTC, with us today. I would now like to invite him to take the stage and deliver the keynote address for this session.
Good afternoon. It's my proud privilege to be with you because some of you will be our partners in the journey of making NCRTC or the RRTS sustainable. In fact, though the operation has not started for RRTS, but still the responsibility that has come on the organization to make the organization sustainable, along with that, to see that how we attract the commuters, and especially in an area where you all know we are passing through Western UP up to Meerut. So maybe briefly about my project. We are constructing the first corridor that is from Delhi to Meerut. In fact, the project consists of 8 corridors, and as part of phase 1, we'll be constructing 3 corridors: Delhi Meerut, Delhi Alwar, Delhi Panipat, and we are now constructing the first corridor, that is Delhi Meerut, and the stage 1 of Delhi Meerut is now ready for operation because we got the clearance in the month of June. That first stage is from Sahibabad to Duhai. That's around 18 kilometers, 17 kilometers or 18 kilometers. But when I look at it and the area which I cover, I really feel I have that discomfort because I know that I do not know how will I catch the traffic, catch the people, and there the role of people like you who are providing the last mile connectivity, we will really depend on you. We already have tie-up with a couple of organizations to provide that connectivity. But then, thanks WRI, that you made this gathering possible. And when I was looking at the program, the topic was seamless connection. I've been in Delhi Metro for quite long, and I always look for seamless connection, which I have never seen earlier. Let me be very frank with you. The basic difference between Delhi Metro and RRTS would be like Delhi Metro, all stations are at an average distance of 800 to 1000 meters, whereas our stations will be from 5 to 8 kilometers. So the requirement changes from what Delhi Metro needed and what we need. Fortunately for us, we had already experts like Sameer Sharma on board with us, and we could design our stations from the very beginning in such a way that it helps integration with the last mile service providers. But only thing now which is left is that how the industry responds to this, how they come forward and provide the services in such a way that we not only increase the ridership, but also give the delight to our commuters that, okay, we are not looking after their requirement not only from station to station, but also from their home to the place they are going to. In fact, when we started discussing on this topic in our organization, we always used to think that, okay, the commuter would book his journey right from his starting point, that is his home, and then he is able to book the journey right up to the next end. But then today, where we are, I know that that's not available, that's not there, and the probably the industry is also not ready. We really have to work hard to see that the services are such that people get attracted to it, and also the enablers, that is like the payment platforms and all that, those are provided in such a way that just one platform is available and people can utilize it for paying for different services. We are going with the NCMC, National Common Mobility Card, which is amended, given to us by the government. We are going with that from beginning, and hope that will facilitate, or that helps the service providers to provide the required services and also the payment services. So I am really interested in knowing that what industry is doing, and the word which is written there, seamless connection and innovation. So that's my interest, my focal area of interest, and I would like to hear from you all. And thank you so much, WRI, for calling me here. And I know that the responsibility of running the system, and that too, knowing fully well that where the competitive mode of transports are much cheaper, or maybe people are used to of those type of systems, whereas what we provide the quality service. So we would like to match the last mile, first mile connections of the similar quality, so that people enjoy the entire end-to-end service, and we also want to remain economical and viable. So thank you so much, and we look forward for a good session. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech, sir. Your insights on how NCRTC's commitment to innovative and sustainable mobility in the region were really valuable. STAMP itself would not have been possible without the support of Toyota Mobility Foundation and its vision for better and more sustainable mobility in cities across the globe. At this point, I would like to call on Mr. Pras Ganesh, Executive Director at Toyota Mobility Foundation, to speak about TMF's human-centric approach to mobility and the impact that STAMP has had across India.
So first of all, thank you very much. Thank you for having me over here. My name is Pras, and I am with the Toyota Mobility Foundation. And today I would like to talk a bit about the journey of STAMP, and try to talk, of course, the contents of what we have learned will be shared later by our colleagues also from World Resources Institute. But I wanted to take you a bit through the entire journey, also in terms of what we've learned and what we've actually kind of struggled throughout this entire process, as we've come to kind of conclude this particular aspect of our journey. What's been very interesting for the overall project, and I think over here today we have people who are innovators, we have policymakers, we have people maybe from people who are just interested citizens. The interesting thing that we have learned from each of the perspectives that hopefully will give you some insights is really what I would like to share with all of you. So I think some of you may have heard my presentation below, so I would like to go very quickly through who we are, Toyota Mobility Foundation, and then get a bit more into the specifics of STAMP and what we've learned through this entire process. So, first of all, Toyota Mobility Foundation, maybe you know the car company Toyota, but we are separate. We're an independent foundation, and we are fundamentally kind of designed to solve mobility-related problems around the world. And the concept behind it is really based on the fundamental way of thinking that we have, even in the entity Toyota, but even beyond, which is that mobility equals opportunity. We think that at the end of the day, for people to get an education, for people to be able to trade, people to, for healthcare, for all aspects of employment, you need some kind of mobility-related kind of consideration. And the more freedom of mobility people have, actually, the more they are able to develop themselves as well. But we also know that mobility causes some issues, and that's one of the reasons that we have to solve issues that are also caused by mobility. And we are mainly looking at two broad areas when we talk about mobility-related issues. The first one is what we call harmony in mobility. How do we solve issues related to the demand and supply of mobility? For example, too much demand, too little supply would mean how do we provide a mobility solution where there is none for some people, maybe in villages or these kind of areas. Or if there is too much supply and too little demand, it may cause problems like safety, pollution, congestion, these kind of issues as well. Similarly, for personal mobility, there are people who have no access to mobility, maybe elderly populations, people with disabilities. How can we support these kind of people as well and provide them with some kind of a opportunity for mobility and thereby improve their lives as well? And we have three main principles that we work by. Any project that we do, it's not just about a short win. It's about how do we ensure that we do a project, we try to ensure that the learnings continue. We try to work on capacity building. So this is really the sustainability that we talk about. This is both environmental sustainability, economic sustainability that needs to be kept in. We believe that innovation and technology can solve a lot of mobility-related problems. And we believe that at the end of the day, it's all about working with partners. And these partners are essentially how we work with. We have to understand the context of any project that we do and any city that we work in, and we always try to identify the most suitable partners. And we were very lucky in this journey to have found WRI-India as our partner here in India, and we've absolutely relished the opportunity of working with WRI-India. In fact, after our relationship with WRI-India, now we do work with WRI in Indonesia and Brazil, in many other places. So the WRI-India team deserves credit for that. So thank you very much for all of your support. And we do projects all over the world. But now I wanted to get into a bit of the detail about how we kind of selected this particular project, STAMP, and specifically what was our aim and intention through this entire journey, and what were some of the big learnings that we had through this entire process. So the way we started was we tried to identify what is the biggest mobility-related problems that we have in Asia. Fundamentally, we see pollution, safety, and congestion as maybe the three major problems that need to be tackled. And there are many things already ongoing, whether it's electrification or whether it's safety technologies. But specifically on congestion, we felt that there was not enough private sector who was working in this particular area. And how could we specifically try to tackle the issues of congestion in a more appropriate way, in a more scientific way as well? And the way we wanted to do this is not do something independent of what the government was doing. So our main intention was, how do we support the governments in terms of what is their major direction in terms of what they wanted to do, which was how do we support public transportation? How do we enable public transportation to be more successful? So even as Mr. Kaushik explained, how can we enhance ridership onto public transportation? This was kind of the core that we had. And we looked at public transportation as one of the main focus areas. And we have this quadrant that we try to look at, looking at the efficiency of transportation and availability of transportation. And we identify different types of solutions or different types of ideas that we have for each of these. Our initial project started in Bangalore. We wanted to see how we can create this model of public-private partnership or some kind of multimodal enablement to be able to support this particular activity. So how do we start on this? The first thing we have to do for any project is we have to come up with a nice name. And that was a Station Access and Mobility Program. This came up with the WRI team, who said, what about STAMP? And we thought it was a perfect name. It's about how do we get more access to the station? How do we get people to actually come and take the public transportation appropriately? And so our starting point was, let's look at the first mile and last mile aspects of public transportation, and how do we try to enable more people to take this public transportation. And this was in 2016, and Sudeep and some of the members over here were part of that early journey as well. And we tried to utilize, this is of course the WRI methodology and the Toyota methodology were somewhat similar. So the way we look in Toyota for any problem is, ideally what we are always saying is, what is the ultimate goal? What are we really trying to do? Essentially, how do we try to ensure that people are able to go to their destination, whatever they need, in the most efficient and appropriate manner? What is the current status? Which means we have to understand the reality of what is happening today, what the commuters really want. So we need to understand this particular gap, the gap between the ideal and the current status. And then we have to break down this particular gap by finding out each of the elements of this problem so that we can solve the problem appropriately. And then we always follow a process of PDCA, or plan, do, check, and act, which is about continuous improvement. How do we continuously improve this particular process? So we came up with what we determined the STAMP methodology. We started off with research, which is about understanding specifically in each city. For example, it started in Bangalore. We tried to understand in Bangalore, what was it that the commuter wanted? What was the current situation? What was the gap? Why couldn't they take the public transportation? What was the problem? Then we tried to break down that problem with all of the key stakeholders. It's not just with the authorities, it's with the innovators, with citizen groups, with people who are supportive for problem solving, and try to work on the capacity building step. And then we did a STAMP challenge where we tried to open up this particular problem statement to different innovators from around the city. And we challenged these innovators to come up with their best ideas. And then we selected the best ideas, and then we gave them a platform to implement. So it's not just about an idea, it's about implementation. And based on the implementation, we tried to improve this particular process. So this was the methodology that we actually kind of created, and we ensured that we were trying to implement throughout the entire process. And what was very interesting when we talk about this, the paradigm of the evolving paradigm of STAMP, was, if you see, we started the project in Bangalore, where we were looking at just a single city, and we were just looking at hardware solutions. So how can we try to get, for example, some kind of an on-demand shuttle, or some kind of an electric rickshaw, or some kind of a bike sharing ride? But as we went into this process of understanding what the problem was, we recognized that was completely insufficient. So we tried to expand STAMP from one city, and we tried to expand it over 7 cities to really understand all of the aspect of the first mile and last mile. And what we mean is, it's not just the hardware, it's then the infrastructure, it's the information, it's the data analytics that you have, it's the financial transaction, it's also the kind of station control. So we tried to look in each city, what could we learn about each aspect of the first mile and last mile evolution? And then how do we try to understand what you need to succeed in each of these particular aspects? So for example, even when we started doing this, so one of our big learnings was to understand that first mile, last mile was far more complex than we had even initially thought about. And we thought we had thought about it reasonably deeply, but the more we got into it, we realized it was far deeper. We also realized that in each catchment area, it's completely different. For example, a residential catchment area to a commercial catchment area is different. We also understand that when we are talking about the time of the day, it may be different. The season of the year, it may be different. So it's extremely important to actually be true to the reality on the ground, and to be able to ensure that we are providing that reality on the ground the choice to allow them to have the best solution that they wanted to work on. So these are just some of the kind of learnings. Again, the more details will be shared later, but I just wanted to share some of the core things that we did. And, this is a very combined slide which talks about 8 years. So, The first thing is, of course, as we mentioned, you need a holistic view of the entire aspect. You cannot look at one element alone and think that is going to solve the problem. So when we talk about first mile, last mile, it's essential that we try to look at the overall perspective from the commuter's perspective. From their house, do they have the information? When they come out, are they able to get their first mile, last mile ride? Are they able to have appropriate infrastructure to get off, get on, or even take the walk to get to the station? Do they have quick throughput? Are they able to take the financial transaction? The second thing is, at least from our perspective, what we strongly believe is commuter is king. Sometimes we try to push a solution from the innovator's perspective or the government's perspective. It doesn't work that way. You have to understand what works for the commuter, and you need to get the commuter to actually buy in and understand. It takes time sometimes for behavioral change. So you need the commuter also to kind of buy into that particular change that is required. The third thing is to ensure the success of any first mile, last mile solution, you need business sustainability. It doesn't work on ideals alone. It works on money. And when you have the money that actually allows that first mile, last mile solution to work, it is much easier for it to become a more appropriate kind of solution that does work. Many times, even this particular aspect is not considered. So it's very important that the business case is appropriately supported and determined. The fourth aspect is data is critical. Previously, we did not have the data to allow us to really understand all of the patterns of behavior. Now we have data. We understand origin, destination data. We understand actually the volume of data, the throughput of data. So how can we utilize this data appropriately to be able to design the solution is absolutely critical. Fifth point is that the innovators in India are amazing. I mean, I have done these kind of projects around the world. I am most amazed with the innovation that we have seen over here. It's fantastic. It's really impressive. The technology, the ideas is amazing. Also, the spirit of jugaad is amazing, meaning you're able to try to work on things on the fly. But there's also some kind of an intention to keep their original perspective. They may have an idea in their head and they don't want to give up that particular idea. It's important that people are also flexible to be able to adjust to what the commuter wants. And then I think, as we have with NSRTC or any of the agencies, you need some visionary leadership and you need appropriate oversight of the whole process, not one part of the process, but the whole process to make it successful. So these are some of the quick learnings that we had. TMF and WRI-India, I think we were honored to be a part of this journey and to be able to contribute. And we also have, of course, the white paper that we would like to share. And specifically, I also wanted to mention, it was not an easy process. It was a very, very difficult process, especially during COVID. There was a lot of difficulty in terms of, of course, behavior. People were really struggling. So I really wanted to thank all the people who were part of the journey, even, across very difficult times. And just I wanted to leave this image in your mind in terms of the framework that we would like you to think about mobility. Usually, when people talk about mobility, a lot of times the technology gets most of the attention. But the reality is the technology is an enabler. What you need to understand is at the center of everything is what are the mobility needs of the resident. You need to understand the why. If I am traveling to take my children to school, it's totally different than if I am traveling alone to go maybe to work, or if I'm taking my elderly patients, or I'm carrying some baggage. You have to understand the why of each mobility journey, and you need to think about it from that perspective. You need to have the city characteristics and regulations where you have to have collaboration. So collaboration is critical. You cannot do anything without the collaboration. You need the technology as the enabler to make it work. And then you need the business model and finance as the sustainer. So this is where you have most of the challenge. With that, I'd like to kind of set off on this communication. So I think we'll see a video right now. I just wanted to thank all of you once again on behalf of Toyota Mobility Foundation. It was a pleasure to be part of this journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pras, for outlining TMF's vision for sustainable mobility and, most importantly, your unwavering support on the STAMP challenge over the last 7 years. As Pras had mentioned, STAMP seeks to solve a critical issue, improving multimodal integration in Indian cities, but with the metro at its core. Starting in Bangalore in 2016, STAMP has evolved considerably in its impact and its scope. Let's take a quick look back to see how STAMP had started and paved the way for innovative solutions to last-mile problems.
In the early 2000s is when the metro network started developing in different cities in India. At this point, there was a lot of expectation that these metros will provide a solution to the mobility issues in cities. However, even by 2016, the kind of ridership that the metro was expecting was not being achieved.
One of the biggest challenges for people accessing the metro system is the last mile connectivity. It's the last mile connectivity which really needs to be addressed, and this could be done through a multimodal approach, and a variety of solutions can be developed for addressing this problem.
Basically, the public transport bodies, all of them also recognize that they have certain metrics and certain success criteria that they have to accomplish, and they also recognize that they cannot accomplish that without closely interacting with the private sector.
This created an opportunity where the last mile solutions could be provided by these mobility startups. This is where the Station Access and Mobility Program came in.
Through STAMP, we are enabling government innovation. We are helping mobility startups to connect with mentors, with experts, with investors and corporates, and enabling the entire ecosystem.
The first edition of the Station Access and Mobility Program was conducted in Bangalore.
In Bangalore, we actually identified three very good innovators. All of them became sustainable and actually started growing. Recognized that this program could work, and that was the reason why we decided to extend the program from one city, and then we decided to take it over to 7 cities.
The last mile requirements of commuters are quite diverse.
So we had to identify, based on the customers, we had to give the customer the choice, or the commuter the choice, to decide what was the appropriate journey for them. So we had to start with the information, then we had to make all of the different solutions available, which is various types of solutions.
It's been super convenient. Earlier I used to spend a lot of time waiting for a cab or an auto. It would take me time to book, but then I'd wait for them to arrive, but now it's just super convenient. Also, it's really cute and comfortable.
Normal auto, by the time you go and you argue with them and you bargain then it's time up. So it's easier to book it here and they charge even less.
I think the first event of STAMP that we did together was STAMP Hyderabad, and we realized along the way that hey, there is a big gap when it comes to the first and last mile. We knew the problem and we knew that we can do something about it, but absolutely we needed a platform, somebody who can basically hold our hand and take us to that place.
It's fantastic to see that this approach of using innovation to solve last mile connectivity to public transport is mainstreaming.
I think the mobility ecosystem has become far more mature. So we've seen the metro service kind of bounce back now, even after 2 years of a terrible pandemic.
We are looking at integrating with various people who are dealing with urban transport, and doing these things individually with various operators is quite a task. It takes a lot of time. So events like STAMP, they collect such people who are working on these ideas of integration.
3 or 4 of the companies that were on STAMP and actually we selected through the STAMP process have now become significant players in the mobility ecosystem. So that's fantastic.
The impact of such a program, which allowed experimentation of hundreds of solutions, is undeniable. In its 7th edition across 7 cities, what this has enabled is multiple solutions, and for commuters to be able to choose what is the most convenient to them. And in making access to the metro easier, this program has helped decarbonize the transportation sector in India.
So now, with an understanding of how STAMP enabled innovative and commuter-centric services in India, we'll move into a really interesting roundtable. While walking, shared modes, and public transport are popular among commuters in India, there are still gaps for those users who seek more on-demand, comfortable services. How can entrepreneurs leverage this to provide more innovative solutions for commuters? How do we create a behavioral shift with commuters? These and more are the questions that this roundtable seeks to create a dialogue on. And I'll now hand over to your moderators for this session, Alok Mukherjee and Sudeep Maiti from WRI India.
Good afternoon, everyone. At the outset, I would again like to thank everyone for making time to be here on a Monday afternoon. Now, the purpose of this roundtable, given that we have stakeholders from across the ecosystem here, whether it's the government, whether it's other organizations or think tanks who work in this space and analyze this space, whether it is mobility players who are seeking to improve access to the metro or other access, independent mobility experts. What we would like to do now is looking at how things have evolved in micromobility and last mile mobility over the course of STAMP across the industry. How do we take this further? How do we build upon this? And how can we actually establish a more long-term sustainable foundation for innovation in mobility and access to the metro? Now, one thing is we have a fairly wide range of stakeholders here, and I would like to make sure that everybody at this table gets a voice. So we would appreciate it if people can articulate some of their points concisely. As moderator, I might have to gently move things along now and then. No hard feelings. I just need to make sure that people towards the end of the discussion also get enough time to speak. So I think let's start the discussion by moving to the government. Navneet Kaushik sir was, of course, here to give the keynote address earlier. And while he's articulated several of his views, I think maybe a little bit more information on in getting users to NCRTC. And now NCRTC is yet to start, but we've heard from the MD VK Singh that they want to integrate it at the very design stage. In getting users to NCRTC stations, where do you think entrepreneurial innovation can add the most value?
Good afternoon. Starting with the conversation, I would like to say that it's a first regional transport system which is being introduced in NCR, and that itself offers a lot of opportunity for innovation. We have seen a lot of metro corridors in various cities, but this regional rapid transit corridors offers a much wider opportunities. The catchment areas of RRTS is much wider, so it's like you are basically going to connect the entire city with the stations. We have Ghaziabad, entire city to be connected. We have Meerut, entire city to be connected. Now, in the area which we are working, the entire public transport system is very unorganized. So there's a lot of opportunity to really organize this system. We require paratransit, we require the bus system. So Ghaziabad city, for example, if you see, it's almost 3 million city and there are 25 buses which are operating there. So there's a huge opportunity to really bring in a lot of type of transport system. In our system, we have introduced a premium class. So we are expecting a lot of people coming from the cars or private vehicles, and we have to really provide a matching last mile of feeder services for this. Now, this requires a multiple dimensions of the services, the premium class of feeder services to the services to connect the hospital. So we have a special service or a special design in the station where the ambulance can come, and people who are staying in Meerut, for example, have access to the good hospitals. We have the hub of education within there. So we have to connect the educational institutes. We have to aggregate this demand. We have to really create the services, and there's a lot of opportunity. We also have a lot of opportunity to develop some integrated platform for journey planning at a regional level. Now, a lot of innovation can happen there. A lot of information is scattered here and there. So this data has to be aggregated. As Mr. Prasanna said, that this data has to be organized for creating insights and developing these innovative solutions. So there's a lot of things, and we invite all of you to come and discuss with us. We have a lot of ideas actually around this regional transit system. We have internally integrated a lot of system. For example, in Meerut, we have integrated entire metro system within our system. So in Meerut, the metro will run on our corridor. Likewise, we are doing a lot of things within our system to make this multimodal integration very efficient. Thank you.
When we designed our stations, our focus was on that we don't obstruct the highway and provide the area to the for parking, for vehicles for transshipment, and also area dedicated for the vehicles which are going to provide us last mile connectivity. That was one important thing which we started with. One thing which I missed earlier was that from 30 kmph average speed of metro, we are going to average speed of 100 kmph, and when that is there, then the travel time reduces, and then we have to see parallelly that the last mile connectivity is equally fast, not this way we have in Delhi for metro. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think there are several interesting points here. One, looking at how we can organize more informal last mile modes, aspects of journey planning, catering to more premium segments of passengers who may be more finicky with the kind of last mile services they require, demand assessment, and also ensuring that there's sufficient space at stations to allow for different last mile modes to come in. Now I'll just very quickly move back to Pras, and of course, Pras, we've heard several of your views already. But, very briefly, where do you feel the biggest opportunities at this point lie in harnessing entrepreneurial access to the metro? And I think it'll be interesting to hear your views after NCRTC.
Yeah, if you're talking about where is the greatest opportunity from an entrepreneurial perspective, actually, I kind of go back a bit to my presentation where the need is not to pigeonhole a single solution. So what I think the biggest learning I had was just the diversity that you have within the metro system. So the metro system requires various solutions, whether it is for different types of commuters, for different types of stations, for different cities. Mobility is very hyper-local. So from that perspective, any solution that is able to be adaptable and adjustable to the different requirements in different maybe catchment areas, this becomes one of the critical areas that we need to focus upon. So it's crucial, first of all, for anyone when we're talking about an entrepreneurial area, to have the openness to understand what the customer really requires or the commuter really requires, and then to be able to provide that solution which gives them the same experience, so as close to the experience as possible. You can never probably replicate the exact experience, but you can replicate as close to that experience as possible. If the other area that I think there is a huge opportunity is really when we start talking about connecting all the different elements of first mile, last mile mobility. As I mentioned, it's really about data. So when we start talking about data, there could be a lot more activity in terms of how that data can be harnessed, data can be utilized, data can be analyzed, and to move away from just maybe descriptive data to more predictive data or prescriptive data. So I think those are some of the areas that I feel there is opportunity going forward.
Thank you. I think so broadly catering to an extreme user diversity of people who may be using the metro, and finally ensuring that we take data a little bit more seriously in planning for metro rail access. So now what I want to do is move to different organizations and think tanks that have also been assessing the mobility ecosystem in India, and essentially go with the same question and then see if we have a consensus on how this has been developing or if there's a divergence in views. So I'll start with Mr. Rahul Pandey from Deloitte, and my question would be, how have you seen the last mile sector evolving in India at this point? And what do you think are the biggest opportunities and challenges for different players as metro rail systems expand across India?
So the biggest evolution that we've seen is that the service is getting integrated in a certain way. For example, when I'm getting out of metro, there are plans or there is an approach to have a cycle there, or another option that allows me to have a bigger mobility. But in terms of the biggest challenge, and again the biggest opportunity, and as Pras sir said, would be in the terms of the data provision. For example, every user has a different need. If there's a college going kid, even in NCRTC, he would prefer a bicycle probably there that helps him reach to his class quickly. If I'm an office going person, I may require an Ola or Uber there. Now, if I can auction or provide this data to the providers at the end of the day, for example, Ola knows that there are 100 people coming here and these are potential users. Ola could automatically start putting their cars or their taxis there, and that enables that provision. And that's where the biggest opportunity comes as to how do I start monetizing this data. Whether do I go in with a fixed option like Amazon, where I charged a fixed amount with everyone, or I go with something like a data auction model. Now those interesting opportunities would start emerging.
All right. I think there seems to be a convergence on the role of data over here so far. But I think I'd like to continue with the same question actually and move to Mr. Anubhav Sen from FITT at IIT Delhi, who looks at innovation and technology transfer in entrepreneurship. How would you say you've seen this sector evolving? And again, the same question: what would the biggest opportunities and challenges be?
I'll just go back to the timeline. So from 2016, we have seen the shared mobility and the connected mobility coming to this space. So in 2016, it was like only the bicycles which were there in the docks, which were there in the metro stations in Huda city center or the others. And from there, we have seen from bicycles to electric mobility, and then to the dockless type of model in which Yulu or Zip or you can say the ride-hailing apps like Uber and Ola are coming into this place. So I just wanted to add like electric rickshaws. As I'm just completely agree with Mr. Rahul, the type of mobility which we need according to the users is the most significant role which we can play. So electric rickshaws are the most important in this place where we can add value. Electric scooters is there, but adding more in the form of last mile and the first line mobility would be pods, or you can say a vehicle with a 6 or a 5-seater that could also, you can say L7 vehicle or L5 vehicle would play a better role in this. And plus the government initiatives are always there for us to help. So in IIT Delhi, we are more focused on the startups who are working in this space, in this connected and the shared mobility space. And we more focus on those startups who are literally adding values in the you can say the connected space more, because the ACE mobility, which we say, the autonomous, connected and the electric, that we are focusing more on that. And plus the you can say the challenges and the opportunities for the metro, which you have said the second question. The biggest opportunity I can say is for the aerial sector, or you can say the drones, which we can say the last mile connectivity for the logistics. That can be the biggest opportunity which can be made. Like in every metro station from NRCTC or from Delhi Metro, they could have a drone hub through which we can provide the last mile logistics for the medical devices, for small small dockets for DTDC or any other type of things that can also add value, or that can also that can be monetized in this. As we know, the metros are the cheapest and the most affordable way of transport, so logistics can play a good space in this. And talking about the challenges, the land acquisitions, and like right now we are facing a biggest challenge in the Saket area where I live right now. So the land acquisition and the congestion is the biggest challenge over there, and solving those challenges with the help of government agencies and other agencies is the biggest challenge right now.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's quite an interesting perspective. One, of course, is focusing on shared modes, and this is something that will come out, I think, quite strongly in the next session as well. Looking at the potential role of logistics and revenue opportunities over there, and of course, land acquisition issues, which are going to be a challenge in any Indian city. This last question, the same question, I'm again actually going to move it on towards the Ola Mobility Institute, which we have both Roshan and Anish over here. What was your perspective on the same question? Would you say it differs significantly from what we've heard so far? What do you think the opportunities are, and how does that evolution look like?
When STAMP started off, I think I was also part of WRI. I initiated that whole discussion. So Trust knows that what we what I've learned in the last 7 years is that, one, demand variation impacts your overall scheme of things. And, when you look at it, we have different needs, right? Like how Pras had mentioned, age, gender, ability to do things also matters. So you have several solutions and several options. When we look at it, in many of our cities, mobility options are very limited. Again, the traffic at different hours is different. So sustaining that becomes a pain point here. We've not seen so much of an evolution in terms of opportunities when it comes to the options that are available. Yes, rental scooters, PBS has been there. Kick scooters, not so much. But the other solutions that are there, like the electric rickshaws that have come out, are they connecting the last places? Probably not so much. There's still opportunity there. Though the sector overall has evolved, what we found in our survey across 40 cities is that only 2 cities had over 50% of mode share to the public transport entity. I mean, to the public transport stops, transit stops, by walk or cycle. Remaining use the other multimodal mediums. So there is still a lot of opportunity lying there, because that the metros have not really catered to a large number. Although we see that 857 kilometers of metro exists, what is the quantum of people who are using it? It has to increase. So, while we have the seamless mobility option, the access time, the wait time matters a lot for the people. Hence, there has to be a method to this whole madness to crack this. Thanks.
Thank you. So I think, we could look at it either way. I can take an optimistic approach, and you can say that you feel there's significant opportunities to expand last mile in the sector, or we could say that things have not been moving as fast as we would like it to be. All right, Sudeep, I think you might want to.
So when we were looking at multimodal integration, there were many aspects that we were focusing on, last mile being one, but there was also other aspects like payment integration and can different can we model it in such a way that trips can be planned right up front? So in essence, trying to enable mass. I know we have representation from Chalo, Charter, Tumok, and Amnex in the room. Priya, I think I'll pose a question first to you, in the sense that Chalo has been doing a lot of digitization of public transport operations and ticketing, etc. Has there been any sort of an approach in kind of helping integrate with different systems?
I don't know people know about Chalo or not. Most of the people are not aware. So we live track 15,000 buses in 51 cities in India. And to answer your question, and everybody I was hearing, I think the integration and multimodality, apart from that, the seamless integration with all the stakeholders is very, very important. What we did, we built a company called carwale.com. And while building Carwale, we realized that cars are not the answer. And then we started thinking that what is next? And we started building public transport, because when we see intra-city transport, it is yet to get solved. And 2-3 things I want to talk about. When we put first GPS in buses in Bhopal, we realized that you can solve the reliability and experience in buses, but if you are not giving last mile connectivity, people will not be able to take the buses. So we started auto in Bhopal, pre-COVID I'm talking about, and then the payment integration we have done, and a lot of innovations we have done, so that people can take autos and they can come to the bus stop and then they can take the bus. And reverse, we also did the same. But when the COVID got over and we survived through COVID, we realized that this is the time wherein we should integrate all sorts of mobility options to make it viable, because unless and until, as you said, sir, that unless and until you understand the consumer behavior, what they want and how they struggle every day, which is what center of our entire business model, you won't be able to give best of the solution to them. So we acquired a company called Voco, which is like two-wheeler e-bikes, wherein we have put 700 bikes in Bombay, and in Mumbai we are running 3,300 buses with the last mile connectivity and integrated entire solution. And then we acquired another company called Shuttle, which is Delhi based. Most of us or most of you know about it, so that we can seamlessly integrate all the solutions and provide and cater to all kinds of consumers, and integrate the entire payment solution on AFCS, and then dashboards and consumer data and traffic data. I'm not saying I have reached there, but every day there is an excitement and there is a suggestion to government that how we can integrate and how we can make a holistic policy so that everyone can come together on the same platform, and we can integrate and data. If you talk about the integration of data, we can learn from TfL London, right? How they have done it, and they have made it so seamless across city for everyone. And we should, as chalo, I'll promote it, I'll support it, and I would like to be part of the solution where everybody is coming together and they are doing data sharing, because it is good for country and it is good for the entire transaction. Because unless you integrate everything, people will not be able to take buses like we did in Kochi, wherein we are giving everything, all the information, even the ferry, when it will come, when Ola will come, where Uber is. So you just provide every detail to the consumer so that they can take more and more public transport, is how I think.
Thank you, Priya. That's an interesting point. I think there has been multiple conversations on how to create an ecosystem of data sharing that will enable a lot of these mass type solutions. I would take the question to Atul. Atul, what do you think that the ecosystem requires to help build such a data sharing sort of a
Okay. Hi, Atul here from Charter. So Charter is basically, we show live location of buses and e-ticketing in Delhi. We are live on 7,000 buses, only in one city for now. Personally, I believe if you have 15 bus at my bus stop at every 15 minutes, and I know at my end station there is a e-rickshaw available, I would never use any app. So I would move on to solve next problem in the world. But yeah, it's not possible, at least in Delhi. So Delhi. So you mentioned data sharing. In 2018, what we did was we opened the public bus data, real-time data, for anyone to use for free or commercial purpose. Although data was not of the best quality, we are still working on it 4 years down the line. But yeah, we were the first city in India to share real-time bus locations. 7,000 buses are live right now. 3 or more apps, Google Maps, Tumok, I think Chalo, Charter, One Delhi. Many apps are using that for research as well as showcasing to their users. So yeah, data sharing is very, very, very important. Cannot emphasize more, because that helps anyone keep the government accountable, as well as any developer overnight can develop an app to serve the user. If the data is with just one player, then I believe the suboptimal experience stays in the market. If there is no healthy competition, then so data is at the core. Even we went ahead to open the ticketing as well in Delhi. So there are 3 different apps in Delhi doing ticketing, including Tumok just came live 2 weeks back. Charter, One Delhi Ticket, and Tumok are live. So yeah, open systems, someone mentioned, how do we make it sustainable down the line? Open systems in terms of data and integration is very crucial, because every 5 years there are new tenders, new company comes with their new user experience. So it's difficult for passengers as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Atul. Since we mentioned, I think Tumok was mentioned a couple of times by Atul. You've had experience. You have just rolled out in Delhi. That's what you said, right? You just rolled out in Delhi, and you've been engaging in Bangalore. What do you think are some of the challenges other than what has been data has definitely been one big challenge, but besides that, what do you think are the other challenges to enable this ecosystem?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Great. The biggest challenge that personally what we have seen in multiple cities, not only Bangalore and Delhi, is so mobility as a service. When we're talking about mobility as a service, then there are two stakeholders. One is the STAs, state transit agencies, the metro and bus bodies, and then the private transport that Pras also mentioned. There should be a perfect amalgamation between both of them. So there is a common policy should be in place. When I say policy, might be for data sharing, might be for qualifying startups or companies to be part of the the initiative of mass, right? Because we talk about, okay, I might be X application would like to integrate with, say, BMTCs of the world or DTC of the world or BMRCL of the world. But whether I'm protecting the interest of the STAs or the public transport bodies. So I think the common link which is missing is a neutral body, which actually will make the complete process very much transparent in terms of what should be do's and don'ts in place if a mobility as a service application or applications to be integrated to public transport bodies, then what should be there on a white paper saying that if the data has to be integrated, what will be the security of the data, if there is any monetization, how the revenue sharing can be worked out, what the startups actually giving to the ecosystem, also another things which is missing at this point in time. If TMOC can give something in return in terms of say no user data, no different accessibility to the no metros or bus stops, user data, providing more insights and analytics, it will make the whole ecosystem easier. So I think it is I think the policy is missing at the first place, and that is the biggest challenge, because I don't know where to go, whom to approach. So I go and then knock doors of everywhere, and then finally I think thanks to WRI, a platform where we can come and then collaborate with these different STS. I think that is what most, like, as per me, is missing, is a neutral body and a policy around it, how and who can be the mass players in a particular city, and how the integration to be kind of.
Thanks, Hiranmay. So I think it's been interesting so far. We've heard from different think tanks, other organizations assessing the sector, and a few of the mobility startups, on how the ecosystem has been evolving. But I want to actually flip this question a little bit and look at what is the kind of ecosystem approach we should actually take in this place. How do we engage, and how do we come up with better engagement models? So I'm going to move now to Chaitanya Kanuru, who is Associate Director at WRI-India, who has also engaged with startups across different programs. And what do you think about this?
A lot has been said so far on the kind of challenges and opportunities that exist, and what I would like to share about the ecosystem approach probably will also reflect on that just a little bit, on a couple of things that maybe I didn't hear. And I think it was Atul who said that if we were to be able to walk out of a station and have access to a vehicle, then we wouldn't really think about apps and all so much. And I think there have been examples of indigenously bottom-up developed, very localized solutions that we are maybe forgetting about a little when we're talking about this sort of universal app and universal solution that can apply across the board. Even if you think about it from the approach of sustainability, you do want localized solutions that don't necessarily require, very elaborate matching supply and demand procedures. It doesn't always happen. That's the problem. And I think that's where the solutions we're trying to solve come in. So how can we, and in some stations, it does happen where you see enough demand coming up that there is a supply that sort of develops. So in the absence of that, you have app-based solutions coming in. We've said that there is a market for last mile. We found that that market can be a little tricky and not always financially sustainable on day one. And that leads to solutions coming and then dropping off. And then that reduces reliability for the customer. So, I mean, I guess based on this reflection, 2 points. One is there a way we can look for bottom up solutions that exist and try to integrate them into sort of platform based approaches. It's sort of happening in places like these Amazon deliveries and all. You start seeing the same people again and again who are serving certain neighborhoods. Is that an approach that is sustainable and we can explore a little more? And in cases where we do need some sort of constructed solution, I do think some sort of risk sharing, revenue sharing mechanism between government and service providers to begin with could be used to ensure reliability. We see it in our bus services and all, where you do have that, and that the government has given this contract. At least in so far in the last mile space, we've said, hey, here's the business opportunity, go find it. And when that hasn't always happened, we find that the services no longer exist, and that doesn't really help the transit service either. So some sort of PPP solutions that go just beyond here's the space, but also look at risk and revenue sharing as well.
I think that's an interesting view. I think I would like to call upon Girish from Metro Ride and Shreyans. Any reflections on what Chaitanya just shared right now? What are your thoughts on that?
Shreyans, you want to jump in, or I'm okay as well?
You can, Girish.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Alok, Sudeep, and for this wonderful opportunity. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there in person. Thanks to be a part of this August panel. My name is Girish Nagpal, and I am the co-founder and CEO at Metro Ride. We are a platform which connect people to public transport hubs. We've started with the first use case of Metro. And in the last couple of years, since we've been operational in 3 cities, Delhi, Hyderabad and Bangalore, we've served around 1 million customers. And coming to the question, in this context, I get that there are a lot of solutions which are working without using technology. But if you look at I think it's been said enough times that if you look at the core is the customer, and we are all talking about customer who more often than not is a daily commuter who wants to use public transport. So if you look at from his lens, what he wants is a predictable experience. I come out of home, going to office, can't have cancellations, can't have suddenly surge pricing. So I just need a simple, predictable solution to reach to office and come back, right? So the predictability, I think that's the key for the daily commuter. How much time it's going to take for the service provider to pick me, how much amount I'm going to pay, what would be the basic service levels. You talk about cancellation, you talk about fulfillment rates, there are different KPIs you can look at. But for a customer, he just needs that predictability, and that can come in from unorganized systems, but not consistently. So that's one big challenge which we saw, because looks like a very simple use case of first and last mile connectivity. Pick up a vehicle, connect somebody who's a daily commuter to a metro station. But everybody knows that there is a peak, there is a lean, there is an off peak in this, and everybody wants the vehicle at the same time, right? Mornings and evenings. So there comes the technology stack. So I differ there from the point. So you need a very, very robust technology stack, which runs on specific SOPs, which runs on a lot of data to match the demand and supply, right? And how do you then use the same asset during the off-peak hours becomes the biggest challenge for such models. And that's what we are, even after 2 years, yes, we've conquered some spaces, still fine-tuning the model, right? So that's one thing. But having said that, the customer is the key. So we still focus on that. And like I said, over these 1 million customers, the one big achievement I would say is that we've been able to deliver that to the customer, the average wait time of around 2 minutes, which is remarkably different from the industry. So you definitely need a model which sustains using technology as the background. That's my take on that, Alok.
Thanks, Girish. Shreyansh, what are your thoughts on this?
I would second Girish, and personally, I also feel that we need all the apps to come onto a single platform. And this is more about, you're giving them multiple options. Like Girish mentioned, that I don't want to come out of the station and feel that there is no vehicle or there is surge pricing. Rather, if there are multiple options available for me to check and choose from which one I want to choose to go from my home to my metro station or from the metro station to the office, I think that will really be helpful. Secondly, as my bike, and I would like to congratulate and thank WRI and TMF, because it is because of a stamp that my bike has implemented a pilot in Mumbai at one metro station, and I'm happy to share that today we are present across all the 30 metro stations in Mumbai, offering first and last mile connectivity. What we have noticed is that it's a very tricky business, and Pras in his presentation made a very beautiful point of business sustainability. So until and unless the authority comes under a public private partnership, it is difficult to implement such projects and continue operating it for its project period. When I say this because someone just mentioned that in 2016, somewhere in Gurgaon, there was a docked bicycle sharing service. And if we would have seen that in the past 3 to 4 years, a lot of bicycle sharing services have either pivoted towards electric scooters, and within electric scooters are also now serving goods deliveries. So to actually continue operating first and last mile connectivity, it is necessary for the government to invest in the project, come as a public private partner, and only when they have skin in the game is when you can offer subsidized services to the end user and they can continue using the services. The other point I think a few people raised over here was about the accessibility and availability of the services. What we have realized is that if you are going to force the user to walk to the nearest PBS station to pick up the cycle every time, every day, drop it off somewhere, take the metro train, get down somewhere, and again drop off the cycle and walk to the office, they will not do it every day. So rather, you need to offer a subscription model, because even if you're offering parking space at the metro station near his home, where he brings his personal vehicle and drops off the vehicle over there, and he takes the metro, but when he gets down somewhere, he still needs something else to go to his office. So rather a subscription where it is accessible, where he can access a service at both the ends of the metro stations, that is when you can actually implement a successful PBS model, and the user will shift from a private vehicle to a public transport. So that's my recommendation on this.
Right. Thanks, Chan. So I think there have been some common elements across the last 3 or 4 conversations here, looking at something that is fairly simple, ground up, convenient, and reliable. Having said that, I want to actually take this discussion to the other end right now and look at artificial intelligence, since we've also been engaging in the startup ecosystem both with mass and with slightly more sophisticated systems that can help make it easier for a commuter to move through stations. So I'll move to Orbo right now, because we had a pilot in Mumbai with Orbo, which in some ways preceded DigiYatra, trying to look at ways we could get people to move to the station faster. How do you feel AI can play a greater role in improving the metro experience of metro commuters at stations?
Hi everyone, my name is Abid Sinha. I come from Orbo. AI is being the buzzword in the world everywhere right now. So be it conscious or unconscious way, but we are all using AI in some form. So the key part is how AI can be substantial in metro, and how can it help commuters to have the fun of it. For that, I would say that just to to understand the concept of AI, it's a black box which needs some factual data, and it needs to understand a problem to provide a solution. Just understand AI in that format. Now going ahead, what you need to understand, what is the customer needing at the end of the day? It's convenience. And the second part is, what does the service provider need? Efficiency. Yeah. So basically, when you think from this perspective, the first point that comes into play, the commuter who is going to a metro station, what's the hurdle? In the busy hours, the main hurdle is how do I just cross the turnstile and cross the queue? That's the biggest question that I have in hand. The problem is, the person standing in front of the turnstile, he's waiting there, taking out the smart card or the token, putting it up there, turnstile opens. So there's a lag in between. The person has to wait for 2 seconds to just cross the metro, the turnstile at the metro station. Now, what we proposed to Mumbai Metro, and we did a POC with them, was that we came up with a solution of a green channel, which is prevalent in the international airports. With the help of facial recognition, there will be a gate which will go green, seeing that, okay, this person is authorized to enter the metro station. And same wise, that if someone does not have enough money in the metro card, that person will be unauthorized and will have to change the track and go through the normal route. Now, how this increased the throughput of the commuters crossing the turnstile was from 5 people a minute to 20 plus people a minute. Now that's how we solved the queue at the metro station. So this is just one aspect of increasing the convenience factor. At the same time, this concept has actually reduced the effort of the operational staff at the metro stations. The second aspect of AI that comes into play is the operations at the metro. If you can determine that what's the crowd like at the metro station, maybe it's a low density crowd or a high density crowd, AI can give you alerts to alter your operational strategic plans at the metro stations. At the same time, what happens is that if you have these data, as everyone is talking about, the data is crucial when it comes to mass mobility. Now, this data can be analyzed from various metro stations, and the frequency of the trains and various aspects of it can be altered too. As someone said that if you need the last mile connectivity at the end service provider needs to know that what's the number of customers he's going to serve at that spot at that time during the day. Now this comes from the concept of the forecasting of demand. If you know the pattern of the consumers, if you know the crowd which is being gathered at various metro stations, and you analyze that data, you can definitely share the information to the service providers. Definitely, that's a mass platform that we are talking about, and in that platform, data sharing is a must. When that data it comes to play with everyone, that's how you give the last mile connectivity to everyone. And definitely there is a plethora of opportunities existing for the personalized way how you can give services to your commuters. I can say that I can speak for hours and hours explaining that what are the prospects with AI giving that experience. But definitely, I will end my view on this with a small question to everyone. Maybe can your face be the ticket in the mass system where you don't need any ticket for moving from a metro or maybe Ola or maybe Uber or anything? Your face itself serves as the ticket for it.
Thank you. I think whether it's a simple solution or something technologically complex, I think the same themes tend to come back, which is just getting the demand to understand, getting the data to understand how much demand there is, and arriving at what it is that commuters are actually looking for. Now, so far we've looked at how the ecosystem have evolved, what different players have been doing, but there are in some ways, some concerns when it comes to more innovation in the sector, which is that there are complaints that new providers come in and then they infringe on the viability of conventional public transport that also provides last mile services to and from metro stations. So I actually want to move to Vivekanand from GIZ here. And my question is this: how can we ensure that entrepreneurial services like this expand, because there clearly is a need and they do they do work for several commuters, but how do we ensure that they don't actually disrupt the viability of public transport systems?
Hi, my name is Vivekanand. I'm with GIZ. We've set up something called a living lab, a mobility living lab in Bangalore. What's living about it is that the solutions are constantly evolving because we work with the citizens at the core of it. So we are also planning a last mile or a loop service or a feeder service in a neighborhood in Bangalore. So what we've realized is that you need to understand the citizens and the requirements from the word go, and only then will you be able to offer them something which is of use to them. So designing of a loop service for typical entrepreneurs should not be just a function of the unit economics. There's much more to it. The issues are hyperlocal. It's been mentioned multiple times today. So you really need to go down to understand, and the citizens do give you all the information, the points of interest, etc. So a lot of benefits that you gather, and then a good amount of money that are spent by these entrepreneurs is on the marketing. But once you're in that neighborhood, what we've realized is the way they are connected, the RWS and so on, that you really can amplify any message to a good number of people across all age groups. So that's something that you could use, which many such entities, whether it's WRI, GIS and the others, they consistently do with the neighborhoods in these cities. So, without infringing on public transport, maybe what you could do is just three things. Look at new routes. In our current plan for this loop service, we've ensured that it doesn't overlap with more than 25% of the bus routes. You got to be very particular about that. The second thing is new modes. E-autos are not regulated, so that's a mode that we thought can be taken up. We've of course spoken to many of these operators who are right here, so they would have known us doing this in Bangalore. And then of course new clients. All the corporates are very cognizant of the growing metro network, so they are somebody who could be your customers. They are waiting to rethink and optimize their employee transport. Gone are those days when you had only buses, diesel run buses taking your employees to offices, right? You could connect them to the closest metro, make incentive schemes. Corporates have a lot of money to actually plan all of this, subsidize it for their employees, rethink how you do employee transport. So new clients could be the way forward for you to do it without infringing on public transport. And of course, all these, a lot of solutions, different modes will exist. So pick and choose whichever mode for any entrepreneur works. And many of these solutions will coexist. And do share the data with the government. I mean, that's something that's extremely important. We've come across studies where even the government is not the largest spender, but it's the largest influencer. So you can't say that I'll run a service for my own revenue growth, but you really have to keep in mind. And there are many services, like you can take Namayatri in Bangalore and so on. So, come forth with your data. So it really helps. So I think that's my take on it.
Thank you. I think that is quite interesting in terms of how we ensure that these different services can coexist. Now, I think very briefly, when in all of this discussion, we do need to make sure that access is equitable in many ways. And one very important component of this is gender. So I want to move to Sonali from Safety Pin. And my question is this: from an entrepreneurial innovation perspective, do you feel that there are any gendered aspects that have been neglected, or anything that we need to focus on a little more to ensure that women are also able to access the metro conveniently?
Hello everyone, I'm Sonali Vyas from Safety Pin, and we work with government and non-government stakeholders for building safer and equitable cities. In the presentation of Stamp, we talked about how customer is a king. One of the biggest customer is women. And what do women feel? Women feel safe in metro, but they don't feel safe outside. The last mile connectivity is an issue. And what are some of the key concerns that they are facing, and maybe the startup need to think about it? See, when we talk about infrastructure planning, I'm talking about the charging infrastructure, or be it even docking station. It can't be in one place where there is no light, or there is no way it can't be just behind a metro station where a woman would feel unsafe to even go there. And when you're doing a network planning, think about the trip chaining. There is enough research, even WRI own research from Nagpur, Delhi, Bangalore shows that women are taking shorter trips to market, to the nearby school, but they don't feature in our network. In the traditional network, the way even the last mile connectivity, buses and metro, yes, but even the last mile connectivity operators are operating only around these work trips, or mostly education in some area. But how do we change that? So that's where you have to work on. And when you're talking about shared mobility, think about I think in Hyderabad now TSRTC has done that. They have request bus stop after 7:30 p.m. If a woman wants to be dropped closer to her bus stop, she can. Instead of the designated bus stop, she can request for a stop near. So those are the things maybe startups can think about it. The other thing I feel we have neglected so far, both from government as well as the private sector, redressal system, complaint redressal system. There is great system in a metro, in buses, but it will be useless unless it is integrated with all the journey planning apps, or even the multimodal apps that are providing this last mile connectivity option. Give the same helpline number. Don't introduce the new one. Just integrate with the government. Work with the government. Don't talk about. We don't need the panic button. We don't, because those panic buttons, I don't even know where that happened. But from our research, safety pin research in Delhi buses, we found that women are reporting, but there is no redressal. They don't hear it until a month later. And the crazy part is the drivers or the conductors, they are not trained enough, or even if the complaint reaches to the system, it's already 1 month and everybody has forgotten about the incident. So there needs to have an innovation. How are we redressing these complaints? I mean, we have rating services for Zomato, Swiggy, Uber, Ola. Then where is this complaint redressal system? We really need a rating service for that. And last but not the least, a lot of startups are doing great job in getting women workforce in the sector, in the transport sector, as drivers, as delivery partners. Great job. But how do we retain them? Because if you don't have an enabling ecosystem, when I say enabling ecosystem, I mean you have lot of places where a driver, a male driver, just sits, take a chai, or even just rest for a while. You don't have that for women, at least in these cities. If a startup like Metro Ride, I know for sure, even Ola, Uber, they are doing it. Maybe start with this area, start with one area, enable it so that people also see. I myself have seen very few women drivers, but I do want to encourage them. But every time I board them, there's always the same problem. We don't know where to go. We don't know where to even go for a maybe public toilet. That's a problem. So what if these startups can work with the government? Maybe they have spaces at the existing metro station or even the bus depots. We can work together to resolve some of these commuter issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonali. I think those were very key points that that needs to be addressed in the public transport system and in all the different aspects of the public transport system. Metros have been known to be a choice for women workers in many cities, essentially because they provide a certain level of service. It provides a certain comfort level. It provides a sense of safety. I think that needs to also extend to the different endpoints that from the station to the door. We have been talking about a lot of formalized systems, but there is one thing that we have to acknowledge is that there is already an ecosystem of IPT providers, autos, e-rickshaws, etc., in different cities. I think what I would like to now call upon Satya to help us understand that what can be done to kind of help integrate these systems into say a formalized system such as Metro.
Yeah, thanks, Alok. It's a pleasure to be here and listening to most of the speakers earlier. It's very fascinating. When you say seamless, one of the things which we need to understand is cut down the interfaces but strengthen the interface. That's the key for getting any multimodal journey seamless. More layers you add on, more interfaces, more friction, and that's the problem today. And to answer the particular question as to how informal and not informal and formal, in fact, in the mobility space, especially in IPT sector, the distinction between formal and informal is gone. Nobody is complying with the regulatory system because the regulatory system itself is vague about it. No app operator in India is having a valid license. There are cases in high courts. So mobility experts are just languishing, commentating on what should be done and what should not be done, whereas it's being adjudicated in courts over last 6-7 years with no resolution as yet. So to answer a specific question as to how micro entrepreneurs like auto drivers can participate in the mobility ecosystem, especially the digital mobility ecosystem, there's a subtle shift that has happened over the last 6 months, and I've been very privileged and proud to have been associated with that. See, in the app world, what happened was digital enablement. We have to move from enablement to empowerment. That's the subtle shift, but a very profound shift, wherein stakeholders or the service providers themselves, they feel what they're doing, what value they're adding, and how can they improve upon that. So let me tell you a short story of what this means. Couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to interact with many auto rickshaw drivers, and everybody had basically said, hey, we have been working a lot using these apps, we are more productive, we get more trips, but real earnings were plummeting, and driver agency was gone, and the customers were complaining there's no transparency. I got law. I think I don't understand why it's surge price per kilometer. One day it's X rupees and the next day it's 2X rupees. Why is it happening? So there was frustration. So the so-called digital enablement, while it removed information asymmetry for discovery, but actually it imposed some problems and externalities. The externalities being customer dissatisfaction, I don't understand the pricing, and the driver dissatisfaction, I lost my agency. So this is where we had, that was the baseline. So we posed the question to drivers themselves, how do you want to resolve it? They said, this is interesting. They basically said, we like digital because this cuts down our dead mileage. Discovery happens better. But that's not happening today because we feel like some hamsters, in a sense that a typical auto driver in Bengaluru, there are some contraptions which you'll love to see. 2 applications, a Ola trip 5 kilometers, okay, 112 rupees, he accepts. Suddenly Uber pops up, a 10 kilometer trip, he cancels that and goes there. So they're gaming this, everybody is gaming. The software providers are gaming the auto drivers are gaming the software providers. So this is the situation. So the driver said, okay, why don't we have our own app? What do you mean by having your own app? Then what they meant was, if we can commercially determine the business model wherein we go from an aggregator based model to software as a solution. I think they posed a very innocent question to me. You guys use Microsoft Excel as your productivity tool. I want an app for productivity tool wherein I find my customers. That's it. Leave the rest to me. I've got a government rate card. I will operate on that. And you tell me your software fee. I'll make sure that I make my earnings so that I cover that out-of-pocket software expenses. So that's how the journey of Namayatri started. And I'll cut all the details because for want of time. But over the last 6 months, the statistics have been very, very impressive. They're clocking 80,000 trips per day, 75,000 drivers onboarded, and 72 crore direct driver earnings. And the pride on drivers' face is unmistakable. They came up to 50,000 driver registration and about 500,000 customer registration with zero marketing spend. Word of mouth. Drivers telling customers, hey, this is our own app. Why don't you shift to this? There's transparency. What you see is what you get, and what I see is what I get. So that actually broke some of the what you call as conventional wisdom. You can't create a network effect so quickly. And then I think Pras rightly mentioned, if you have a human-centric approach, you can, if stakeholders own it, it's a community-driven solution. So 3 principles which we sort of now intuitively applied, but I can share it at this forum is, what led to Namayatri was starting with constructive conversations. We stood, I don't see any driver here, no taxi driver here. So when will we get that? A taxi association or a driver association member sitting here for last mile connectivity. When will we articulate what is real problems are? I will tell you, Mr. Kaushik, you will tell you, मेरे को auto stand ही नहीं है, कैसा आ सकता हूँ वहाँ पे? If I stand there, police wala will come and say, chase me away. So these are real problems for our last mile connectivity, wherein these micro entrepreneurs, be it an auto driver or a taxi driver, is actually facing today. So we need that conversation, constructive conversation. And when you design a product, it should be an collaborative co-creation. It can't be I say you do it. The UI on Namayatri was designed by drivers, not by any UX engineers or whatever. And they had great debate and say that should be green. I'm the user, that should be green. You don't tell me anything else. So that's the conversation that I had. And finally, community contribution. I think this addresses some of the earlier conversations we had. How do we share data? How do we discover all these mobility options in a single place? I think there's a great thing happening under ONDC. There's a mobility category. I urge you all to get your software to be enabled on ONDC so that interoperability becomes a feature. It's no longer an option. It should become a feature. And the story doesn't end here. I'll take a couple of minutes here.
Satya, I'm really sorry, but we were running out of time.
Sorry, fine. So anyway, I'll end on this note with a request to Mr. Navneet Kaushik throughout the conversation till now, nobody talked about cycles. Please, RRTS में cycle लेकर जाने के लिए please अवकाश दीजिए.
Thank you, Satya. Satya, I think those what we have been talking about are ground up solutions, and I think what you have mentioned and described here is something which is of great value. I think this is the model that will go forward quite in multiple cities. So thank you for sharing that. We have been talking a lot on the supply side of things, but this modal shift requires a lot of behavior change as well. And I wanted to invite Srini, who has just started off with a behavioral change project in Bangalore. Srini, how do we get a lot more people to start seriously considering public transport, and it will have implications, long-lasting implications everywhere.
Thanks, Sudeep. It's fascinating to hear all this conversation. At the heart of it all is people. I think press has emphasized on it and everyone else has talked about it. We have to understand where people are coming from. Those of us that are champions of sustainable mobility think that everyone should switch to sustainable mobility, or why can't you, and the planet is dying, there is no plan B and all that. But all this sounds like sentimental, emotional messages to people who really have to get to their work or whatever they're trying to do. So you need to go from that conversation to a more realistic conversations. I think most of the work that's happening around the table conveys to me that is the focus of it. Fundamentally, the problem is that all the decks are lined up against sustainable mobility. If you look at from a people's point of view, the biggest marker of social, mobility going upwards is vehicular ownership. Okay, we all grown up watching the Hamara Bajaj ads and the daughter bringing a car as a gift to the dad when she gets a job, and all that stuff, which is a very big thing in India. And then the other experience of trauma, particularly for women in crowded buses, unsafe, and really not a pleasant experience. And many friends of mine told me that they couldn't wait to get a job to buy their own two-wheeler or a car. So these are all the growing up experiences people have that stop them from switching to, no matter how many apps you create, they're not going to get in there because of all of the other things that I talked about. From a government point of view, they would like to spend tens of thousands of crores on metros and other things, but they are also very used and addicted to the life tax, road tax coming from the vehicular ownership. Other than liquor, the second biggest revenue source is vehicles. So how can we expect government to promote sustainable mobility when they are expecting more money from vehicle ownership? So we need to understand this contradiction. And then from a company's point of view, while they want employees to have better productivity, less stress coming into work, they also provide free parking. You come to any software technology park in Bengaluru, they have 3,000 parking spots, all free for any employee. So in one of the biggest tech parks, it takes 1 hour to come out of the tech park parking lot into the main road. So what is going to happen on the outer ring road when it takes 45 minutes to come out of their own campus? At the same time, the companies want to reduce the CO2 emissions. They all have CSR. They have invested a lot of money on reducing their water usage, energy usage, and now trying to figure out how to do this. So looking at all of this situation, government too has now been talking the language of sustainable transport. The manifesto of Congress party, which has just recently come to power, has claimed that their goal is to increase the share of modal transport of public transport modal share from 48% to 70% in the next 5 years. This is a promise made by a political party in a manifesto. So we thought that all of these conditions are very convenient for us to launch a campaign called Personal to Public, which means personal transport to public. The number 2 is the nudge, 2 days a week. Please keep your car. We need to understand that vehicle ownership is different from commuting. Let people own vehicles, but try to use public transport for commuting. Let people go on leisure trips. Let them even go to work 3 days a week. But if you switch to public transport 2 days, maybe that will begin a cycle of behavioral change. So what can companies do for this? Can they create incentive systems? What can government do for this? Can they fix the footpaths? Almost everyone asks me this. You don't need to do anything else. Just fix the footpaths, I'll take care of the rest. Right? We don't have good footpaths in Bengaluru and many other cities. So these are the things that we're working on to kind of induce a behavioral change, and also doing things in such a way that people can also feel ownership of it. It's not that WRI and BPAC or some people are doing it, but we're building a large coalition where there is companies, there is government agencies, and there is citizen groups, because citizen groups come into the picture in terms of the signage and ward committees and footpaths and so on and so forth. So with all of these people taking ownership of it, we feel like it's a movement towards public transport, and that might create a interest in using public transport more often. It's called personal to public. We started in Bengaluru, Sudeep, as you know, but it's a call out to all of you. If any of you want to join us as partners in Bengaluru, or you want to try to do this in other cities, you're most welcome. WRI-India will be very happy to talk to you and work with you on this. Thanks.
Thank you, Srini. I think we've also overrun time quite a bit, but we've got really valuable feedback from everyone here. I think it does does kind of pose, it does show what the next part of a program like STEM could be. With that, we'll have to close this session because the next session is lined up and people have to move out. But thank you, everyone.